Boromir was strong, brave, and a little troubled, but despite his transgressions caused by the temptations from the ring, he ended up going out as a hero, and his sacrifice was not in vain. For Boromir's character, we're going to do the same thing that we did with Frodo and use the Dark Urge to represent the pole of the ring's power over him. The race will of course be human, and the starting class will be fighter. For the first fighting style, we are going to start with protection. When you have a shield, impose disadvantage on attack against your allies when you are within 1.5 meters. This seems appropriate for the way that Boromir fights. Now, unfortunately, by choosing the dark one, our background is chosen forest, which is the haunted one, giving us skills in medicine and intimidation. Medicine doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Boromir's character, but intimidation fits okay. Now for the ability scores, we are going to focus on high strength and constitution to make him a tanky fighter, with above average dexterity and charisma, and really low wisdom due to his poor decision making involving the ring. So we're going to keep strength at 17 with that +2 modifier. Dexterity we're going to bring down to 11, but we will be evening out these scores later. Constitution we're going to bump up to 16 with the +1 modifier. Intelligence will stay at 10. Wisdom is coming all the way down to 8, and charisma will be 12. For skill proficiencies, we already get medicine and intimidation from the background. For the racial skill point, we are going to put that under history, due to him being educated in the history of Gondor and its rulers. And then we're going to put our expertise right under, well, where they already have them, which is athletics and acrobatics, as he was very fit and able to perform impressive feats. Now we'll move on to appearance. We'll stick with body type 2, identity male. For the voice, I felt like 7 sounded the closest, so that's what I'm going to go with. Now, for the face, I couldn't get one that looks quite right for Boromir, but I felt like the closest one was head 1. It's got the broader nose, the smaller mouth, and the kind of big jawline. Just have to get over the freckles. For the skin tone, we are going to go with warm tone 5, as Boromir did have a little bit of a darker tanned color to his skin, if we go by the Sean Bean adaptation, which we are. For eye color, his eyes were green. We're going to go with green 3. For the hair, we will go with the haircut named Wavelet. And for the hair color, we're looking for something that's brown with a bit of blonde in it. So we're going to go with brown gold 4. And then for facial hair, we will go with plain goatee. With appearance out of the way, we will now move on to the build. Something to note while we're going through the build section, Boromir's character is going to be a little bit different than how I showed the setup, because it turns out that you cannot choose Dark Urge when having another player come into your game. So the skills, proficiencies, and the background are different on this one. Hopefully that doesn't cause any confusion. Alright, at level 2 we are still in Fighter and we're just unlocking Action Surge. At level 3 Fighter, it is time to choose a subclass. Now, since Boromir was the captain of Gondor, we are going to choose Battle Master, as he would have been trained in battle tactics. For the maneuvers, I feel like the most appropriate ones would be Feinting Attack, which is just dealing additional damage, Maneuvering Attack, which again is dealing additional damage, but also giving a friendly creature back half its movement speed, and allowing it to move without provoking attacks of opportunity, and then Riposte, which is when a hostile creature misses you with an attack, you can retaliate. At level 4 Fighter, it's time to take the first feat. And the first feat is just going to be ability score improvement so that we can even out the strength and dex. And in evening out the strength to 18, we are working towards a maxed out strength stat. At level 5 Fighter, we unlock that very handy extra attack. At level 6 Fighter, we unlock another feat because fighters get that additional feat at level 6. This time we are going to choose Shield Master, keeping in mind that Boromir is actually the only member of the Fellowship that uses a shield. You gain a +2 bonus to dex saving throws while wielding a shield. If a spell forces you to make a dex saving throw, you can use a reaction to shield yourself and diminish the effect's damage. On a failed saving throw, you only take half damage, and on a successful saving throw, you don't take any at all. So very handy. At level 7 fighter, we get to choose 2 more maneuvers. I believe the best ones left to us would be precision attack, which is using one of the superior dice to add it to the attack roll, so a greater chance of accuracy. And sweeping attack, which allows you to attack multiple enemies at once. And at level 8 fighter, it's time to choose our 3rd feat. We are once again going to go for ability score improvement and max out our strength at 20. Boromir's strength is often overlooked because Aragorn is, well, frankly stealing the show, but Boromir is often seen doing the same or similar feats of strength as Aragorn. Now at level 9, this is where we're going to change it up a bit, and we're actually going to multi-class into Paladin. And the reason that we're multi-classing into Paladin will be explained in the bonus section, as well as some additional ways to spice up the role-playing elements. For the subclass, which you have to choose right away, the one that fits the closest would be Oath of Devotion, which focuses on acting with honor and virtue. At level 10, you need to choose a fighting style for Paladin. We've already done protection, so this time we're going to do defense, so just give him a +1 bonus to armor class, which is appropriate because Boromir is more of a defensive fighter really than an offensive fighter. Now, by taking Paladin, we are unlocking some spells, and not everything is going to be quite on point here, but what we can do is at least swap out the prepared spells to be a little more appropriate. So we'll change to Shield of Faith, Protection from Evil and Good, and Heroism, as these are all more functional spells. And the Heroism spell is actually pretty on point to be a tribute to the most impressive and emotional fight scene in the Lord of the Rings series. At level 11 Paladin, just unlocking some things here. The only thing you need to change is going into prepared spells and getting rid of command, which they automatically put in there, and once again replacing it with protection from evil and good. And then at the final level, level 12 Paladin, it's time to choose yet another feat. So lots of feats in this build, and this time we're going to take Tough. Your hit point maximum increases by 2 for every level you've gained. I feel like that is really appropriate for Boromir, who is ridiculously resilient, taking punishment that would drop a normal man. We do need to go back into our prepared spells and once again make some changes here, getting rid of command and cure wounds and replacing them with bless and divine favor, which are really the most on-point options out of those available, which is pretty limited. And now with the build complete, it's time to move on to the bonus section. Let's first start by addressing the whole Paladin thing. We weren't able to find anything specifically on Boromir taking an oath. However, all stewards of Gondor have to take an oath to hold Rod and rule in the name of the king until he shall return. So it isn't much of a stretch to think that Boromir may have had to take a similar oath due to being heir to the steward and being Gondor's captain. So that is our reasoning behind making him a paladin. Now, if you'd like to add some additional spice to the RPG aspect, you can have Boromir become an Oathbreaker. When Boromir learns of Aragorn being Isildur's heir, and therefore the rightful king, he denies him, which would be breaking this oath. So shortly after speccing into Paladin, you can have him break the oath, and then in the late game, perhaps before the final boss fight, have him take the oath again, representative of when, on Boromir's deathbed, he swore an oath of fealty to Aragorn. Now, spoiler warning here, but here are the ways you can break your oath in Acts 2 and 3. You can retake your oath by speaking to the Oathbreaker Knight and paying 1,000 gold. Now let's move on to equipment. Boromir doesn't have a named weapon, so really any good longsword will do. Your best early game option is the adamantine longsword that you can make at Grimforge, and then a late game option would be the Sword of the Emperor, which provides some additional resilience through its +2 bonus to saving throws against spells. For shields, a good early game option is the Safeguard Shield in Act 1, which gets you a +1 to your saving throws. But once you get to Act 2, I recommend switching to the Shield of Devotion, which is a great fit with this build once into the Paladin levels. For armor, a great mid-game choice would be the Rippling Force Mail in Act 2. It reflects Boromir's final act of heroism via causing its wearer to deal damage damage after they've been struck enough times, and it even has a bit of a Gondorian look to it. And finally, the martial exertion gloves in Act 3 are a great thematic choice, giving the wearer an additional attack and doubling their movement speed for one turn in return for taking damage. And that will do it for the Boromir build. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave us a like, a comment on what other builds you'd like to see, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Thanks for watching.